greatest episode of Connected. Straight after this, by the way, we're recording immediately after I'm done here with Jason.
That's great.
So I'm going to be wired.
Stuff to listen to tonight.
I think we're
Zach,
on
just so
YouTube
you know,
now.
you are on our live stream right now.
Oh my God. Okay. Hi and bye.
Regrets. Don't look behind the curtain. The live stream is live.
All right, so if I refresh here, there it is, Six Colors live stream.
so
All right,
you
now
can
I'm going to
promote
tweet
that
it.
And
We have tweeted.
Oh, excellent.
Once I get the A-OK from everyone there, I'm ready to go.
All right, and I'm going to bring up my notes. And
I put a lot of information in the document. We're obviously not going to use all of it, but it's there if we need it. But I just basically put my notes that I made and edited
for
them.
me, but
Yeah.
that's great because it's a special day. It's an auspicious day.
Yeah. It's just got all of my stuff.
All right, so you tweeted out where we are, all the various places we are.
I've tweeted, yes, that we are live on the usual, and we have the Six Colors Overflow
All right,
room.
well, I think we should... I'm going to take the lid off of this water bottle. I think we should get to it.
Okay. Everybody's recording on your end?
Yep, we're all rolling here.
Okay. You're coming in a little hot for me
Oh, am I?
at some points. Yeah, I don't know if that's just WebEx, though. Just as a heads up.
All right.
It could just be
They're
WebEx
looking at
compression.
I was too noisy.
I mean, as long as everybody's good with your levels, then I'm very happy. But I just wanted to let you know that just in case.
Yep. All right. Awesome. Okay,
Great.
we're ready.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Sorry
Thanks,
to be a
everybody.
pain. Just wanted to check. All right. From Relay FM, this is Upgrade, episode 423. Today's show is brought to you by Squarespace, Sourcegraph, Bombus, and Capital One. My name is Mike Hurley, and I'm joined by Jason Snell. Hi, Jason Snell.
I'm Mike Hurley. How are you?
I am fine and dandy, my friend, because it's iPhone Day.
It is. It's iPhone Day. It's
We're
Apple Watch Day.
recording
It's AirPods Pro Day.
At Apple Watch Day, and it's Ultra Day. This is
Ultra
Upgrade.
Day. It will always
Welcome
be known
to
from now
Ultra
on
Upgrade.
as Ultra Wednesday.
Yeah. So,
So,
I have a hashtag Snell Talk question for you.
okay, sure.
Comes from me.
Oh, no.
I want to know, Jason, where are you?
I think we have referred to this in the past as undisclosed location C. I all I can say is this: I am somewhere deep within
The bowels.
the ring. I may be near Johnny Sruji's chip lab for all I know, but no, I'm actually in the ring at Apple Park.
You're in the ring.
I am
at
in the
Apple
ring
Park.
at Apple Park. I'm not
Now
across the
that's
street.
interesting
On
information.
Tontaou
that we
Avenue, I
want.
am in the ring in an undisclosed location.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's
I
not
hope
what
I
I was
was-
expecting.
Yeah. Nobody told me not to say that that's where I was. So that's
I
where
will
am.
say that answers a question that I had because so I knew we were starting around this time and I was like, where's Jason? So I opened Find My and I was looking and I'm like, he's nowhere near where he needs to be.
I know.
And then you appeared on this call that we've got going on. So hey ho. Thank you very much to Apple for hosting Jason.
Yes,
So
thank you
we can
very
have
much.
this conversation as soon as we can today. I would like to just start with a little bit of follow-out. And I want to talk for a moment about our St. Jude campaign because it's been going incredibly well so far. And I wanted to just spend a little moment talking about that, Jason. We've raised for St. Jude so far this year over $117,000 so far, which I'm just blown away by the generosity so far of the Relay FM community and various podcasts and websites and all that kind of stuff. Similarly, we've got currently, Jason, over 100 people who have signed up to fundraise as one of the sub-campaign fundraisers so far this year. So it's really going incredibly. I would love our listeners to go to Relay, go to stjude.org/relay and give to St. Jude. Because look, I will borrow a line from my friend Casey Liss, who talks about this on ATP. We're obviously about to talk about a bunch of products. That's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about things we want to spend our money on. This is a fantastic place to give some money to. For the fourth consecutive year, the Relay FM community is rallying together to support the life-saving mission of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which is finding cures and saving children. Since opening its doors in 1962, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital has grown in size and capability for one special reason. They believe that children all over the world deserve the same chance at survival. Treatments developed at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital have helped increase the overall childhood cancer survival rate from 20% to more than 80%. And while tremendous strides have been made, 1 in 5 children diagnosed in the US will not survive. And globally, those numbers are reversed, with 4 in 5 children in some developing countries not surviving. With limited access to high quality, affordable medicines and the financial burden of research and care, these are hallmarks of the childhood cancer challenge that many developing countries face. And also this is just a horrible thing that no family should ever have to go through, is their child facing death. And this is why we come together to raise money for St. Jude, because during Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, it is an opportunity for us to fight childhood cancer, because together we can make a big impact. I want everybody to go to stjude.org/relay. You can donate there, and we have some wonderful gifts if you do. If you give $60 or more, you'll get a digital bundle, which includes a wallpaper and a macOS screensaver pack, which I cannot wait to tell you more about. It was put together by a wonderful friend, James Thompson. James did just an absurdly incredible, weird, and wonderful job, and I can't wait for you all to see it. If you make a gift of $100 or more, you get these and some stickers. If you sign up to Fundraise, so you'll be able to go out to your friends, your family, your colleagues, people you know, your communities online, and get them to give to St. Jude. If you raise $1 or more after signing up to be a fundraiser, you will get an exclusive St. Jude limited edition of the Relay FM Challenge coin. At $250 or more, you get a really weird and wonderful desk mat of mine and Steven's cartoon heads. It's bananas. Please go to stjude.org/relay to donate and find out more about fundraising. And don't forget to mark your calendars for September 16th for the 4th annual Podcastathon. That's from 12 to 8 p.m. US Eastern Time. I'll tell you a little bit more about that on next week's episode. Once again, please, stjude.org/relay to learn more and donate, and let's cure childhood cancer together. Should we look at the draft results, Jason Snow?
I mean, if we have to, we have to. It was
you're
a momentous... Look, Mike.
Yes, Jason.
It turns out that I could have... I would have had to get every question right. I would have had to have a perfect score. And nobody gets a perfect score.
Nobody gets a perfect score.
Except for you, because you got a perfect score
this
today.
One time. Your big boy over here.
Yeah.
I checked, Jason.
10.
Only time it's ever happened.
10 for 10.
We've gotten close before. We both got to 9
The only thing you missed is the over-under.
I know.
But
there was a moment
matter.
where it started to get towards the time, and I was like, I was at that point very convinced I was going to get the 10 because I only had 1 left. And I was like, if something happens and I end up getting screwed on this tiebreaker,
that would have been the saddest thing ever. No, so what I missed, because really we might as well just list the misses, because that's all there is. I thought the prices would go up. Not Apple. Tim Cook's holding them down.
Right? Now, isn't that a surprise?
Inflation.
And they made a note for each one to say the prices were staying the same, right? Because I think there have just been a lot of people believing that was going to be the case.
That it was just
and I think that they got to flex. Really?
No, they did. They did. And also make that note that it's like, well, look, this is the same price because the Mini was cheaper, right? They're like, no, this is the same price that the 13 price was for the 14. So I got that one wrong. I got new Apple Watch model is called Pro wrong, but didn't we all get that one wrong? We'll talk about that.
Yep.
And we didn't. Although I may be in it now, we did not pay a visit to Apple's chip lab. And so I got 7 and you got 10. Not even
was
close.
one that I thought I wasn't going to get when in the Apple Watch segment they closed it out, right? And I was like, oh, I'm not going to get that.
No new watch faces.
Well, no, there was the new watch face. There was the
only new watch.
Because that came in the Ultra.
In the Ultra,
I was always expecting that would be the Ultra, though. That was where I thought they would do it because it needed the new sensors. Like maybe there would be a body temperature one, but it actually, we'll talk about it like when we get to it. The body temperature thing just seems very specific. They're using it not really for anything.
A new Fitness Plus
Other
features
than the one thing.
just ended up being, and it'll work on your iPhone, which is great because my daughter called me the other week and said, I want to use Fitness Plus. How do I do it? And I said, you don't have an Apple Watch, so you can't. So it's like,
That's interesting.
I
right?
texted her and I was like, okay, you're going to be able to do that. So that'll be good.
What do you think the situation with that is? Do you think that they're just wanting to expand it? So I guess this is going to be kind of like, every device integrates with the Apple Watch, even the Apple TV, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess that they're just going to say like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think that's it. That they decided, now that they've launched it, that maybe getting Fitness Plus in front of more people is more important than tying it to the Apple Watch.
I'm really intrigued to see how it like translates, because there are times like in some of the Fitness Plus classes that I've done, they reference the heart rate and they reference I guess the closing the rings just pops up, but they reference things which they show on the screen, like the burn rate and like where you are compared to other people.
They do.
And like none of that's going to be, or the burn bar, none of that's gonna
but it's all
translate.
but it's all non-interactive, right? So I mean, they may make reference to it, or they may just take that out of the scripts going forward. I don't know.
Or hey, maybe a thing pops up and says, you should buy an Apple Watch.
Yeah, that's right.
It would be great for you right now. Buy an Apple Watch.
Sure.
That would be really fun.
Anyway, congratulations. You were the champion. I don't have to move my banner, and neither do you. Our pennants remain intact.
I would have to check, but I think this might be the first time I've won 2 on the bounce. I don't think I've ever done that before.
No? Well done.
Nope, I haven't. So I'm feeling, not going to lie, Jason, feels pretty good.
Good.
You know how it feels.
I know how it feels.
I've been how it feels.
I've been there before.
Time and time again.
You win some, you lose some.
I don't know.
But it feels good to win. Yeah, it does.
All right. Let's thank our first sponsor of this week's episode, and we will start digging in for what we got here.
All right.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. You can stand out with a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything. Products, services, even the content that you create, because Squarespace has got you covered. With Squarespace, you can use insights to grow your business. Once you set up your website, if you think to yourself, hey, where are my visitors coming from? Which channels are working the best for me? Even where are my sales coming from if you set up a store? Squarespace lets you analyze all of this. Then when you have that data, you can improve your website and build a marketing strategy based on your top keywords or most popular products and content. And then if you want to take it that one step further, why not encourage your visitors to sign up as email subscribers and stand out in any inbox of a Squarespace email campaign? You can start people on the journey of becoming loyal customers. You just start with an email template, you customize it by applying your brand ingredients like site colors and logo, and then with their built-in analytics, you can measure the impact of every send. When you want to get a new, and also like you set up your first design, it's super easy. You can also change to new designs. They have beautiful templates. They're best-in-class website templates that are so customizable for you to fit your needs. You can drag and drop content, move everything around. This is my very favorite thing about Squarespace, is how easy it is to set up a website and then get it looking how I want, and then get what I want out into the world. Go and try it out for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Head to squarespace.com/upgrade and you can sign up for a free trial with no credit card required. Then when you're ready to launch, use the offer code UPGRADE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/upgrade. Then when you sign up, use the offer code UPGRADE and you will get 10% off your first purchase and show your support for the show. Our thanks to Squarespace for the continued support of this show and all of Relay FM. I want to start with what I think may have been the most surprising product, or like the product that I feel like maybe we didn't understand in the exact way going into it.
Yeah.
Apple Watch Ultra. Mm-hmm. I feel like the conversations around this product when we first heard about it from Mark Gurman began with, this is an extreme sports watch.
Yes.
Right?
And then we talked ourselves out of it.
And everybody did, right?
Yeah.
I think including Mark Gurman, then started talking about, no, this is a pro watch. No, this is a sports watch.
Absolutely.
And Apple multiple times called it a sports watch, the best sports watch. Like that's what they're going for here, right?
Yeah, I'm curious about the dynamic that made the initial report successful. He got it right, and that then everything after that was hedging. And I wonder if it might have actually been a reaction to that report that everybody sort of like played it down because they didn't want people to get it completely right, that it might have actually been like, nah, it's more complicated than that. But the truth is that his report was right. And all of us sort of like talked ourselves out of it and started saying, oh, well, but probably not. It'll probably just be aspirational and it'll have those features, but they won't really talk about it. And that was the thing that struck me, just like it struck you, that the Apple Watch Ultra is unrepentantly, specifically, and I think learning the lesson of the original Apple Watch, focusing on the thing that it needs to be, which is a sports watch. And so it is, what is it? Notifications and health. Like those are the things that they figured out that the Apple Watch is good for. Well, it clearly, one of the Apple Watch stories has always been about health and about sports and about activity. And so and there's a sports watch category. So why does the Apple Watch only sort of like barely touch on the sports watch? So here it is. It is unabashedly a sports watch. And I loved that the whole presentation was focused on Apple talking to the experts in the field about what they wanted out of it, right? So they get the guy on the boat doing his presentation about his dive computer app that's going to be on the Apple Watch, and you've got the ultra marathoner and all one after the other saying the message really is we talk to the experts and these are the features they want, and it's all in on sports. It's huge, and it's funny because it made sense at the time, but then we all just sort of like thought, nah, they're not going to do that, and we'll come back to this because there was a lot of that in this. I think a lot of the assumptions about this event were people underestimating Apple. Big,
all right. I mean, I'm excited to pick that apart as we go
big
through.
Company, we're, one of the most successful companies in the world, and yet somehow I think sometimes we underestimate them, or we kind of blunt their ambition and say, nah, they're not going to do that, and sometimes they take big shots.
I think the thing that I've taken away from this really actually could have been called Apple Watch Extreme, because yes, it's the sports watch, but they're really pushing on the hard end of sports. Because one of the things that I was intrigued about is going into this, like if it's going to be say it's a pro featured watch or a sports featured watch or whatever, how do they stack it up against the others? Where the whole promo for the Series A is focused around a guy running outside. So it's clearly like Apple Watch Ultra is not like now the only one that's going to be positioned as sports, right? Or fitness. Where this one, like all of the promo videos is like, no. Do you climb mountains? Do you run in deserts? Do you like dive? Are you a scuba diver? But also what I like about the way they do things, I find some of those watches to be really ugly because they're built to be utilitarian. I've seen images of this thing. I've seen hands-on like photos of it afterwards. It looks really cool. Did you get to see one?
Yeah, absolutely. It's chunky.
It looks chunky.
It's chunky, but like the face is flat, and so it's that in that it's very different from other Apple Watch. It's still recognizably an Apple Watch because it's got the curved corners, but its face is flat. And then how like the digital crown from the very beginning has meant to be kind of, I mean, you can almost hear it in Johnny Ive's voice. It imparts a bit of elegance of using the language of watchmaking in the Apple Watch, right? Mm-hmm. It is a fine kind of elegant control. You look at the one on the Apple Watch Ultra, and it's like a gear or something out of a toolbox. Right. It is chunky and heavy, and it's the same word in a different language almost. And then the fact that the other button, which is designed to kind of disappear, is more prominent. And then there's the big orange button on the other, the action button. Action button. on the other side
in orange. It's all orange, right? No matter what color you get, that's
international
always
orange, the Golden Gate Bridge color, international orange.
I love that color. I'm not gonna like all of the orange is definitely selling me on it. I have no doubt that Steven's freaking out. He loves orange too.
Yeah.
And they mentioned, and it makes sense that right, like the crown is and the buttons, they're meant to be operated even if you have gloves on.
Right.
Right.
Because in a
which I
lot of
think
these
is
environments,
smart.
you're not, your hands are covered. So yeah, that's really smart. Also, I don't think having a dedicated button for essentially user assignable or app assignable on that action button it's a smart bit of I think Apple learning about how people want to use the Apple Watch and thinking about this context, but also more broadly. I was talking to James Thompson a little while ago about a watch app that I was thinking of, wondering why it doesn't exist. And one of the challenges is those buttons sort of have system functions for the most part. They scroll, but like to push in the crown or push in the button, it does system things. And I don't think apps are allowed to take them, right?
No, I mean it would break, right? You'd never be able to leave the app.
You could never leave the app, right? So action button, there it is. It's like, well, this button, and they showed it with that dive computer that the action button does something in the app. Like obviously the app is written to support the action button for an action, which is really cool because that's a thing that Apple Watch apps haven't really been able to do legally, at least before. So yeah, I love that this is. It's a big chunky watch, and it does what it's good at. It's got a big battery, and then they've got their low power mode that makes it an even longer lived battery. And
it's the David Smith mode, right? But they didn't really give any information about that. I don't know if you know anything.
And there's
more.
low power mode, and they like specifically didn't
wasn't that
call it that, right? So I think that maybe there's a variation on that or something for the Apple Watch Ultra.
I mean, I expect that it has low power mode because it's in WatchOS 9. I assume it has that and probably gets like 7 months of battery life. But they referenced like 60 hours of battery life with enhancements. Like I expect it is a kind of like adventure mode or something, right? Where it's still more functionable. There's a couple of design. Yeah, that's a word. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
A couple of design things that I wanted to get your take on. So the screen is flat and the case comes up and surrounds it. What does that look like? It seems interesting.
I don't even know how to describe it. It's just a flat face, and then it's got a titanium ring around it, basically, and there's a little bit of a chamfer on the side and all that. But it's a really different look from one direction, right? Like the edges look very Apple Watch, but the flatness is very
because it's almost got like a camera bump look to me now, where it's like you've got the part and then it's like a shelf that sits on top of it, right? Like over the time our camera bumps, they get like little protrusions. It kind of has that kind of look to it in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they did a lot of sort of ruggedness testing too, of like what are the shapes, what's going to reduce the impact so it doesn't break and it doesn't smash on the side of it or on the front of it, like just so that it can survive in these environments. Rocks.
I saw a friend of the show, Quinn Nelson of Snazzy Labs, tweeting because Quinn's a big watch guy, and he helped me with a term, crown guard. So when you have like, because you've got the digital crown has that bump, right, and the bump kind of goes around it.
Yeah,
it's called a crown guard in watch terms. So we have the phrase now for how to describe the bump that sits on the side now.
Okay,
it's crown guard.
Crown guard.
It has all of them have cellular, which makes sense, right, for some of the stuff that they describe later on. And I think also just simplifies the offering. $799, which I think... Actually, do you know what? I don't know what I think about that price. $799?
I would not have guessed
until just now.
I would not have guessed that it would be that low, honestly. I was thinking that this was going to be a $999 kind of watch.
Right.
We'll have to think about where it fits given its functionality and all of that, but I would have overshot on that. I wanted to mention the whole dual band GPS and on top of all that, that compass where you can set waypoints and there's a way back. So if you get lost, it's actually been tracking where you've been moving and you can retrace your steps.
Yeah, it's
That's
like the
amazing.
breadcrumb Apple Watch. You
It
know?
is.
Just it's like for Hansel and Gretel.
Hansel and Gretel, Apple Watch,
Love
Hansel
it.
and Gretel. Another rejected name. A little bit long, a little wordy.
I think that is a cool feature. They've done some stuff that I don't really understand, but I believe them when they've put new GPS stuff in there. To the dense urban conditions was a really interesting idea, because I know this is something that I've struggled with. You're like in a big city and your iPhone just freaks out
forget
because it
it.
doesn't know where you are anymore.
no
So
idea.
I really hope they bring this technology to their other devices, not just the Apple Watch Ultra in the future. The siren that they've put on the watch that you can hear from up to 180 meters away, which is powered by a bigger, louder speaker, and they put 3 microphones on it, I think, so they can do some noise cancellation stuff if you're, as they showed in the video, climbing a mountain face and you need to call base camp. It literally said base camp on the watch screen, which I thought was funny.
was where he was calling was Basecamp. Yeah, I think the idea there too, that this is a watch that they think a common use case is going to be out on its own without an iPhone attached to it, using cellular, and you have to use it to communicate, and all of those things kind of follow from that. I was impressed because this was 45 minutes at the beginning of the presentation. I mean, the Apple Watch was not a footnote to this presentation, and this particular model. I mean, the regular Apple Watch, we can talk about it. There's not as much. There's not as much interesting in there. There are a few things, but this Apple Watch Ultra, they had so much, and I didn't feel bored by most of it, because it was more like they kept piling things on. I lost a little focus when we went to the guy on the boat talking about the dive computer. I kind of
just because I don't understand what he's talking about, but.
And I started to wonder, did they shoot that out on a boat, or did they have him be in front of a screen and bumped him around there, because he was being bumped around, and he probably had to loop all his dialogue. And I did take a moment and think about the filmmaking at that point, because and Apple refers to this as a film, by the way, because Tim Cook came out on stage at the Steve Jobs Theater today before the presentation, like he did at WWDC, and he said, "Good morning, good morning,
good morning,"
and then he said something interesting, which was, and since you didn't see it, I'll tell you, it's been 3 years since the last event here, and we really miss doing these events. And but he said, we've made these films, and we really like how these films are put together and how they get our product out there, and we hope you enjoy the film. It was very much what I've been saying.
That answers it then, doesn't it?
It's the director introducing the film at the film festival, and then in this case, I think he might have even been in the front row afterward. But then we just watched the film, as it were. But I thought it was very, very impressive. And while the Apple Watch Ultra, a name that they've been using, that they use with the M1 Ultra, right? So it's been floating out there, and it's a superlative, right? You could call it extreme, but Ultra is sort of like this is the most. So it was in the palette, and so they chose to use it. I think it's an interesting product, not necessarily a product that I'm personally interested in, but I love. It is the antithesis of that original Apple Watch presentation, if you think back, right? Which was very much like, what's it for? Well, I mean, anything. And this is what it's for. Right? This watch was born for a purpose, and I love products like that know what they are.
Yeah. This is the most focused of any Apple Watch for sure. Of what it's made for. They even made 3 new watch bands to go alongside it, and they're named very clearly: Alpine Loop, Trail Loop, Ocean Band. If you can't work out what they're meant for, they can't help you. But they look cool, though. They do look. I love the look of the Alpine Band, and I think I did see, Jason, that these will work on the larger of the 2 existing watches.
Nice.
And if you have bands, they will still fit on these.
Okay.
But, they might not match up exactly, but that's kind of how that's going to work. What I'll say is I am really intrigued to see one of these. I'm really intrigued to put one on. I do not believe this is my everyday aesthetic for what I'm looking for in a watch. Now, I could imagine there are times where this would look really good with some of the clothes that I wear, especially with some of the orange pops and stuff like that. I just think you could, wearing the right set of clothes would look really good. What I like about my current Apple Watch, and I use the gold stainless steel, is it looks simple enough when it in a regular day, but I can dress it up. I feel like this watch, it's going to be difficult to dress up.
Yeah.
I think it will always scream what it is. But if you are, like this really does feel to me similar in aesthetic to the G-Shock, which is what we've been talking about for a long time, in that it is big and it is bulky and you know what it is when you see it, and you can't hide that. But it looks cool if that's what you're into.
Let's be honest, if you invite an ultra-marathoner over to dinner, even if they dress up, they're an ultra-marathoner. They can wear that watch.
And they want to tell you too. So this is the easy way for them to tell you. You could be like, oh, that's a big watch. You're like, oh, yeah, I need this
to run across the Sahara Desert.
Because when I run across deserts, I need the battery life.
Yeah.
It's an easy. If you are an ultra marathoner, congratulations. You now have a new way to tell people.
I use this to orient myself out of a snow blind situation where I had to go back to my base camp. I called my base camp. I keep them in my contacts list as base camp.
Because who hasn't got their base camp in the if you're gonna call base camp, why would you not?
Why would you not?
Your contacts list. The one last thing I did want to mention, I just thought it was interesting. The Depth app that they've worked on, that they partnered with an existing company to do that. I just think that's really interesting. But I think that it's not. I don't think it's called. They referenced it as like a Depth app, but I think it's just they worked with this company called Oceanic Plus to integrate this new thing, and it's like really well done.
Yeah, the app is Oceanic Plus from Hewish Outdoors, right?
But it looks very Apple-y in its design. I think it looks like that. I really do believe that this was a. There is a Depth app. Okay, so I've gotten that confused. I'm looking at the Apple Watch.
Oh, there's two. Yeah, it automatically uses the Depth app, and then there's Oceanic Plus, which is the Dive Computer app from a third party. Cost unknown.
So super cool. Super cool. Yeah, so that $7.99 order today. Some products were ordered today, which is interesting.
Arrives on the 23rd.
This one's shipping on the 23rd of September, so a couple of weeks away. All right. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at SourceGraph. So you've just hired a developer. That's super awesome. But now you have to get them onboarded. If your company's growing, onboarding new developers will be a common occurrence, but it's a big undertaking every single time. As well, like one of the things that's going to be the biggest challenges you're going to see is that for new hires to get up to speed with the project that they're working on, this can be really tricky. If the code bases your developers are working in are already large, it can be really hard to take that information in. Thankfully, SourceGraph make it easy to move fast even in big and large code bases. Developers know that information is the most useful when it is findable, right? Because you want to find the information. Centralization can be helpful for this, but given the fact that companies store knowledge in at least 2 different locations, how do you make that knowledge accessible to those that need it? As a code intelligence platform, SourceGraph gives developers what they need to drive their own learning over time and in different situations. Teams without SourceGraph have to rely on asking colleagues or reviewing out-of-date documentation. This can be cumbersome and time-consuming. But with SourceGraph, every developer can search across millions of repositories to find specific code, saving time for themselves and everyone else. So when questions do come up, you know it's the big stuff worthy of the extra time. SourceGraph was created to make developers' lives easier, and today they work with leading companies across every industry, including 3 out of the 5 top tech companies, plus PayPal, Uber, Plaid, GE, Reddit, and Atlassian. Visit about.sourcegraph.com to learn more. That is about.sourcegraph.com to learn why some of the biggest tech companies in the world use SourceGraph and to see what it can do for yours, or just click the link in the show notes to let them know that you heard about them from this show. Our thanks to SourceGraph for their support of this show and Relay FM. So that wasn't the only Apple Watch.
Not at all. Not even close.
Not even close. There was the Apple Watch Series 8, which there were points during the presentation where I couldn't work out if they were telling me there were new features to the watch or not.
Yeah, well...
Where they were telling me what the Apple Watch Series 8 could do and what it was good at and the features that it had, and I was like, does it not already do this? I was very confused.
That happened with the iPhone too, but definitely there's a Like they ran that commercial. Basically, it's a film within a film, if you will, and they did the it lists like, hey, you're doing stuff with your Apple Watch, and it included the new features along with all the other things that it does. And I understand that when you're trying to communicate the product, you want to, on one level, you want to communicate the totality of the product, whereas we're kind of like interested in what is new in the new one that you're introducing today. And so we got with the regular old Apple Watch, there's not a lot here. It includes a feature that it turns out is spanning the Apple Watch and the iPhone, which is the crash detection, which is following on from fall detection in the Apple Watch. They now have across the watch and the iPhone this crash detection idea because they've built in a new, it's like a new gyroscope, new accelerometer, a barometric sensor, and they built it together where it can basically determine if you're in a car crash using a machine learning model, and it will. So previously, if you fell while running with an Apple Watch, it would do this. Speaking as somebody who fell while running with an Apple Watch, the iPhone has crash detection too.
But so if I had a crash and I just had my iPhone in the car,
it detects a crash.
It would do the same thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Same feature.
Because obviously, fall detection is not on the iPhone.
Yeah, right. But same feature for this and it looks like they've put the same sensors in both devices. So crash detection is not an Apple Watch only feature; it's also an iPhone feature. But it was first introduced here. Better battery life, low power mode. Again, that they're doing.
But these are WatchOS 9 features, right? Like that was also interesting. There was like a lot of WatchOS 9 features, like, oh hey, you can do
low power mode, Series 4 and later,
mode,
cellular.
workouts.
Now will support international warning, Series 5 onward.
Roaming.
International roaming.
Yeah.
There
we go. We got it.
If you need to roam, you can roam.
But it did get a new sensor, and
it did the temperature
sensor.
So. Remember what I said about how Apple doing new sensors in the Apple Watch is a delicate balance of what it's allowed to make medical claims about for FDA reasons?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think what's interesting here is what they're allowed to talk about and what I presumably they either aren't allowed to talk about or weren't satisfied that the results were worth it. Because what we didn't get is, let's say you're running a fever, we'll warn you. It's just not claimed at all. This is a feature that has been very specifically limited to cycle tracking and retrospective ovulation estimation. And I want to say, so often the tech industry gets criticized because the perception is, and I think the reality is, it's a lot of men making decisions about features for men and not for women. And so to see a major health feature in the Apple Watch that is dedicated to ovulation and ovulation estimation, I think is interesting. I think it's an interesting milestone in terms of doing this. I also think it's interesting because, okay, I don't know the backstory of this feature and this sensor and the probably years-long attempt to get this in an Apple Watch, but I wonder, is this what they initially thought would be the banner feature? Or did they try to get a temperature sensor in the Apple Watch, and in the end, this was the thing that it was capable of actually using it for, right? Like this is the one where they're like, well, we can check, because when we were having kids, it was, temping, like she said in the presentation, it's temping to figure out when the ovulation is and all of that. And like, well, we can do that on the Apple Watch. That's awesome. But I part of me thinks, was that always all you were looking for? Was that, great if it was, but there are other things you could probably do with a temperature sensor too, that are not claimed here. So, but this is cool. Yeah. I remember, my kids are in college now, right? So I remember thinking back to the Excel spreadsheet with temperatures in it that we had 20 years ago. And I think this is pretty awesome. Yeah.
But even within what it can do, it seems limited, for at least from the way they described it. And you have to wear it at night to benefit from this.
It is an overnight feature that they're metering you every 5 seconds overnight, which is clearly, because what they said is, although it's interesting because it's got the two temperature sensors, so it's trying to reduce the noise of the temperature of your environment and remove that from the equation. Like, are you in a hot room or are you in a cold room? What's the difference between the temperature at the top of the watch and the bottom of the watch? That's interesting. But then overnight, they feel like that's when you can get the best guess about what your kind of actual resting body temperature is, not during the day. So you have to wear it at night in order to do this tracking.
But that seems like a potentially, and I would love to know otherwise, a limit of the sensitivity of the technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? I think they must have tried it. Again, I'm just assuming here. I am assuming that they tried it to work all the time and found that there was too much noise during the day.
Yeah, and whilst very useful for those trying to have children or otherwise to understand, like, to understand ovulation is really important. Retrospectively is helpful for planning.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's not like, I want to know right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
and again,
or like, I want to institute this in the morning every day.
Right.
You know, like,
yeah.
so
it's very much like, again, what's the story there? And are they not allowed to do it? Or is it that they tried that and they thought this is not reliable? And do you want to be the blamed when you say, okay, I think you might be ovulating now, and like, well, my Apple Watch said I was, so I don't know.
But what I will say about this has been, I think, my hope is they learned from the blood oxygen sensor, because the blood oxygen sensor also came with a bunch of caveats, and really the story was, hey, you can do this, but with no link between what it might be actually realistically useful for, and this, whilst caveated, is useful.
It's useful, yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because you can use this along with the other things you're doing to track ovulation.
Yeah, and to track
as another data point.
Yeah, and to track the menstrual cycle and notify for cycle deviations, which is also a useful health feature. It's all good. Mm-hmm. It's all good. You're right. The rollout is tangible in that way.
Yeah.
And this is a claim that can be made, which is great. I'm happy with all of these features. I'm curious about what the story is behind their conception, and then no pun intended, and what finally gets put out there, and if there are features that died along the way because they weren't, that there was too much noise or it was unreliable. And I'm on one level, like you, I'm glad to see that this actually came to pass, because otherwise you end up in a situation where it's really awkward and you're like, well, we have a sensor. What does it do? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
So if because I know we've been hearing about this for a while, if they've maybe held off on this so they could do this with it, then great. Because even if not perfect, this is a feature. It's like in the same way of like the ECG, you can't use it in place of every other type of ECG available,
right?
But it can give you useful information. On that, by the way, can I slight turn? So Apple love to do their like stories, right? Like these were extreme. Guy falls into a garbage truck. A bear breaks into the living room. Yeah. It's like, oh my god, these are getting a lot more.
I love that. I love that they're all introduced and you can't see them. You can only hear them. And the one guy is whispering. And you're like, what happened to him?
What's that about?
Whispering. And
I was like, I'm intrigued.
There's a bear. Is the answer? There was a bear in there.
They were good.
Also, the filmmaking there, where they're like, hey. Woman who was in a plane crash. We're going to make a set of a crashed plane and put you in it to sell an Apple Watch. How do you feel about that? I was wondering that myself. How does she feel about that?
Any post-traumatic stress from that incident, or are we all good here? You know what I mean? Like, how you feeling? And that one also was introduced halfway through, right? It wasn't introduced in the beginning. They knew the hit they had on that one. I will say, I do every time one of these starts, I'm like, again, and then when it ends, I'm like, that was real good.
Yeah, no, I really like that a lot. Although my favorite filmmaking craft note will come, I think, comes later. In the iPhone, where there's an amazing, it's almost like the child of the home set happened. Did you notice that one? Where there's the subway and the jackhammer man and the cafe. That was in the iPhone presentation, right? Or was it
Yes.
AirPods?
No, AirPods.
Oh, it was
AirPods. That was
okay.
AirPods Pro.
That was I loved that. Just I want to point out if people didn't notice, it starts with those like fun pans where like, oh, she's in the subway, but now she's stepped out of the doors of the subway and she's in an alley with a jackhammer guy behind her, and I'm thinking that seems a little artificial. I wonder. Again, I'm thinking about the filmmaking, and then she steps into the cafe, and I said, well, this is very stylized and artificial, but it's fun. And then she steps out of the cafe forward, and she's on a stage, and it pulls back and you see the three things, and they're all in like boxes in a set behind where she's standing. And I thought that was so clever to call out the artifice of it. So I guess Tim Cook is right, it is a film. All right, fine.
There have been a few people in our Discord, which is a members Discord. You can get access to it if you sign up at getupgradeplus.com. You also get longer, ad-free versions of every episode of Upgrade, including this one. People say, oh, surely they're actors in the Apple Watch presentation. I know two people personally who've wrote those letters in and who've been in those.
Yes.
And we had an Upgrade listener, so 3.
Yes.
Do you remember there was that time? I think we mentioned it because Kyle, friend of the show, Kyle, was in one, and then somebody else wrote in and said I was in. That was me too.
Was
so
me.
3. So
Yeah.
in the past they've used the real people.
Yeah, those are
And I
the real.
will
Those are real
say
people in the Apple Watch.
Some of those did not feel like actors' performances.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think they're the real people. And honestly, I feel like that's the way you should do it. Like if you're going to read real people's stories, you should give those people the ability to tell those stories, and they do that. And I like that they do that.
I agree.
If they're going to do it. So I think that's Apple Watch Series 8. Order today, shipping on the 16th. I would tell you, Jason, I'm actually pretty happy. I don't want a new Apple Watch. I'm not planning on upgrading. There isn't, but I'm happy about that. I think I've said this before. It's actually something I want from the Apple Watch, that they do enough to get me every 2 to 3 years. I don't want or need this to be replaced every year. And so I'm pretty happy about it. But Adina's on a Series 4, and she's like, I really want one. So like, perfect. Because I've been wanting to upgrade her anyway, because I think she would benefit from the always-on display, because I think it makes a huge difference to wearing the watch frequently. And these features, she's like, I want one. So we're going with that. Apple Watch SE.
They redid it, everybody. They redid it.
I think, for me, they've done it. Mm-hmm. This is it. Now, Mike Hurley has been a staunch
critic of the
critic
Apple Watch SE.
of the Apple Watch SE, because at $329, which I think it was before, if I'm right, $299. $299. It's $299. Too expensive.
And the Series 3 was $199, right?
Yeah.
And so
It's
now
now
they've got it at
$249.
$249 for the second generation. Same system in package as the big Apple Watch.
It's the Series 8.
You're not really, but it's
Okay.
the older
Discord's
display.
confirming. It was $279 before.
Okay.
So it's cheaper.
cheaper.
But even though I would love to see it at $199, like that's the number I want them to hit, $249 for a brand new Apple Watch of any description,
Yeah.
I think is good.
I agree.
I think that's fine.
I agree.
Um,
and it's
very-
more advanced. Like the display is more advanced. Like it's better in a bunch of ways where it doesn't feel like. Obviously, and they mentioned the kid thing, and there was just a story I think in the New York Times about this about kids with Apple Watches, and like that's a thing, that's a real thing, and they get a lot of these that are like that. So that you want the cellular model, but they obviously did some work to get the price down a little bit. Presumably that nylon composite on the back might be part of that, but it allows it to match the colors a little bit more, and good to see it. Glad to see it's there, and that Apple seems to be comfortable at $249 as the base of the Apple Watch.
They said 80% of Apple Watch SE owners, it's their first time Apple Watch, which makes sense, especially if they're going to younger people.
Yep.
It includes motion sensors for crash detection, so it has all of that. What it still doesn't have, and I will say to Apple's credit, they have a key differences on their comparison page now to show you what differs, like very specifically between the models that you're suggesting, that you're looking at. Things it doesn't have, which I think are big things, doesn't have the ECG app and some of that kind of stuff. It just does high heart rate. I don't think this is important, but it doesn't have the blood oxygen sensor. But the biggest one, which I am actually pretty disappointed about, is no always on display.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
I think for $249 there should be an always on display. But I will say now at $249 for something that's brand new, I think they've hit a good point. But what they don't have anymore is a sub $200 Apple Watch, because the Series 3 has gone away and they are not keeping around the original SE at all in the lineup. So the Apple Watch lineup starts at new SE and that's it. Which is interesting, right?
Yeah, love it.
This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Bombas. Bombas' mission is simple: to make the most comfortable clothes ever and match every item sold of an equal item donated. So when you buy Bombas, you are also giving to someone in need. Bombas designed their socks, shirts, and underwear to be the clothes you can't wait to put on every day. Everything they make is soft, seamless, tagless, and has a cozy feel. There's a pair of Bombas socks for everything you do. They come in tons of options like comfy performance styles with sweat-wicking yarns, which means your feet stay cool while the rest of you works up a sweat. And their no-show socks are designed for comfort while being specifically engineered to never fall down. So let your ankles be free to soak up the sunlight. I'm wearing those ones today. I love their no-show socks. They're so comfortable. My favorite thing on them is they have this like padding at the back, which is really great for pulling the socks up and putting them on, but also keeps my ankles protected because otherwise my shoes can rub on them. The Bombas' no-show socks are the only socks that I've ever worn that have been this comfortable, and I get no problems from the shoes that I wear. It's fantastic. Bombas t-shirts are made with thoughtful design features like invisible seams, soft fabrics, and the perfect weight, so they hang just right. And Bombas' underwear is breathable, fits well, and has a barely there feel that might make you forget they're there, but in a good way. Socks, underwear, and t-shirts are the three most requested items at homeless shelters, and that is why Bombas donates one for every item you buy. So far, Bombas customers like you have helped donate over 50 million items of essential clothing. Go to bombas.com/upgrade and use the code UPGRADE for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/upgrade and the code UPGRADE at checkout. Bombas.com/upgrade. The code UPGRADE. Our thanks to Bombas for their support of this show and Relay FM. Let's talk AirPods Pro real quick.
Okay.
They put a new chip in it, combined with some new drivers. They're apparently saying it's vastly better audio quality.
Yeah, I did not test this out because there was a long wait and it was in a loud room, and I guess I could have tested the noise canceling a little bit, but I want to hear it for myself to find out. But they did say the quality was better. High bandwidth, I don't know exactly. I mean, did they go into specifics, or they're really just like high bandwidth connectivity, and you know what that means, and then did they make any claims beyond that, like spatial audio? They didn't.
No.
Did they talk about lossless or higher bit rates or anything like that? They just said high bandwidth
and I couldn't
connectivity.
find anything on the pages either
So
about that.
More to come there, probably, is my guess, is that there was a feature that they were not ready to talk about, so they didn't talk about it. But it's implied. Big thing, though, is the precision finding, right? So, like, I believe you can precision find the case and the individual earbuds. Which is great. Like, you can go into Find My, and it's like, where's the left earbud? It's over there. I think that's the case. And the little speaker, so your case will chirp too and let you know where it is. So, bring it to the Apple TV remote next. But
two more features on the case.
Yeah.
They put a lanyard loop thing in there, right?
Right?
But Apple doesn't make a lanyard. The company InCase make a lanyard, and Apple have 2 or 3 of them available on their store. I think it's weird to put the holes on the case and not make a lanyard yourself.
It's a little weird.
It seems like quite a strange thing to have done, to then just have one third-party manufacturer available with these things right now.
They know that literally everybody in the world will make a lanyard case for this thing.
Yeah, and admittedly, there are already lanyards made by everyone,
in existence, right? There are lanyards.
But it still was just a funny thing to me that they did that. The case now as well, you can use an Apple Watch charger to charge it.
Yeah, it means that any of those combo chargers that have an Apple Watch charger now, that is also an AirPods Pro case charger.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so you can use the Travel Duo thing that they have, and even if you don't have an Apple Watch, you can benefit from it. I just think that's really cool. It's like a good thing to have, and it means that companies don't have to make the 3-charger thing anymore. They can just make a 2-charger thing.
And the thing that we've been asking for since the very beginning, capacitive sensor so that you can actually run your finger up and down to do volume control. That's something that everybody's like,
I'm really
why don't you
intrigued
make it
about
like a
that.
trackpad? And they're like, we think you should tap on the side of your head. And then later they're like, we think you should squeeze. That's what you should do. And now it's like, okay, you can squeeze and stuff, but you can also just run your finger up and down and do a volume control.
I'm intrigued about that because I remember when they went from AirPods to AirPods Pro, I stopped thinking about that because I felt the stems are too small now.
and yet
So
somehow-
I'm really intrigued to see what that feels like. There is also an extra small ear tip.
yes,
Great. If you have tiny ears, right? That's good.
good for tiny.
Oh, and the active noise cancellation seems to have been vastly
Yeah,
improved.
that's-
Double the amount before. I'm really intrigued.
I'm very much interested in the part that they're doing with their own tech, and then they seem to suggest that the making the sticking it in your ear, that seal is part of it too. So they work together. But yeah, I love AirPods Pro and I use mine all the time. So I'm really looking forward to trying this out and seeing how they actually sound and feel.
During this part of the presentation, that there was a cameo from Helly from Severance.
Yeah, I got that one. I
Getting on a train.
didn't win the draft for me,
Weird.
but hell, and at the end she comes back. At the very end of the
Yeah.
credits, she flickers into and out of existence on the train.
It's her standing on the
train platform.
train platform. Of
Did you
all
notice-
of the shows,
Did you notice the train's info board? The train is on an infinite loop. That's the train
Okay.
line. It's the infinite loop, and the next stop is the Milky Way Road.
Okay, that's weird.
It's in the galaxy.
I would say of all of the TV shows to have a cameo, Severance is an odd one. Me and you had spoken about this,
Mm-hmm.
I think, about the idea of them going down a floor and they go past the Severance floor. Did we
Yeah.
talk about this on last week's episode?
We did, because there was the idea that Stephen Colbert had done
They were
his
filming.
Severance thing, and they were filming, and so maybe there was an opportunity to do something there. That's not what they did, but if you look at Apple's TV app right now, like the two big things that are promoting because they're the Emmy nominees are Severance and Ted Lasso. So Severance gives them something that's not Ted Lasso to talk about.
And also, Severance is the new darling, right?
It is.
Because Teddy, he's done this year.
Ted's going out the door,
apparently.
but Severance is coming back. So yeah.
And also, I think Severance has had the most recent popular acclaim.
Yeah.
Ted Lasso season 2 didn't have a strong popular acclaim as season 1 did.
No, it's the hot.
So that's
new- hot
AirPods
new thing.
Pro.
Let's talk about the iPhone. Hey, here we are.
Yep.
We got there.
Can you believe it?
We got
iPhone 14,
50 minutes to talk about the iPhone now. Let's do it.
iPhone 14, and 14 Plus.
14 Plus. Yeah, it's Plus Club. Plus Club is back. Plus Club has reopened its doors. A club that I was never a member of.
No. You were. I mean, obviously, we knew this was going to happen, but this
Yeah.
is the end of the road for Mini.
It is.
Sure. How you feeling?
I've had 2 years to prepare, I feel like, for this.
Fair enough.
And the answer
both
is that's
get-
why I bought one last year, is because I knew it was the last one.
Both get a little bit of extra battery life. That's like an important thing right
Sure.
off the top. And the 14 Plus, because of its size and I guess the features that it has, it is the biggest battery in an iPhone ever, or like the longest lasting battery in an iPhone ever.
Yeah.
Which makes
In the-
sense,
in the
really.
14 Plus, yeah.
Yeah. The A15 Bionic chip is powering it all.
Okay. All right.
Weird, right?
Okay.
The way they said this?
All right. Like, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that the iPhone 14, the iPhone 14 and 14 Pro were powered by the A15 Bionic chip, and there was only one, and that was the chip. The way it was pitched in the presentation was, I think, aspirational for the future of the iPhone, which is what they didn't say is this is the same chip that was in the iPhone 13 line. They said this is the chip that was in the iPhone 13 Pro.
Yes.
Now, going forward, I suspect this is what will happen, is that the
Yes.
Pro chip will next year be the regular chip, and then the Pro gets the new chip.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen this year. But they acted as if it did, which is just
Yes.
amazing and fascinating. But yeah, it's the same chip. It's the same chip. Same chip. as last
Because
year.
they said this was the chip in the iPhone 13 Pro.
It was. I mean, show me the lie.
And also the iPhone 13.
Also the iPhone 13. In fact, it was the iPhone 13 Pro introduced this amazing chip that you already know because it was also in the iPhone 13. Yeah, that was a head scratcher for me. Like I admire their commitment to the bit, but I think that is an aspirational thing. And like, look, what are you going to say? We didn't change the chip, so like emphasize the positive. So that's what they're going to do is their chip. Actually, the part that they did that I thought they would do, and I'm glad that they did, is the part where they said we're way ahead. We're so far ahead that the competition hasn't even passed the iPhone 11 yet.
Yeah.
That was a fun little shot at the competition. And the truth is, if I look at this, the fact that they're taking a year off from the chip development in the lower end iPhone, it's almost like reaping the rewards of being so far ahead. Like you're so far ahead that you can stop and take a break for some of your phones, if not all of them, and they're still going to be ahead. They're still going to be great, and I think that's what's going on here.
Okay, the Discord's very excited, and so I must address this before we also, so people can close their Twitter apps too. This chip has the 5-core GPU that the Pro version of the chip had.
So that's the
chips.
difference. That's the difference is that they binned the number of GPUs.
Yes.
Okay.
But realistically, let's all agree that one GPU core, you're not going to feel it. Like just so we all can agree here that
to be clear,
you're technically correct, but
yet,
ultimately this is the thing.
That is the weakest of sauce.
As well as the chip, we are seeing now, and you were alluding to this for sure, of like maybe we're going to get a bit more of this going forward because they talk about improvements to the camera. And a lot of the features referenced on the camera were features that were in the previous Pro models, like sensor shift, optical image stabilization, faster aperture and better low light performance, autofocus on the front-facing camera. Like this is stuff that came to the Pro phones before.
And now is being rolled
I will say, I'm very excited about this. I didn't notice it during the presentation, but a friend of the show, John Voorhees mentioned it afterwards on Twitter. Apple now calls the wide camera the main camera. Finally, because we've been calling it main camera for a long time because it's just clearer, and they're doing that now. Deep Fusion got a shout out.
It did,
and
it went.
I was hoping
it didn't just get a shout out, Mike. It went further up the pipeline.
I was hoping we would hear about Deep Fusion today because they would say no more Deep Fusion.
No.
It is now a part of the Photonic engine. However, the way they describe the Photonic engine seems to do what I am looking for, which is more detail, brighter colors, because I think Deep Fusion darkens images. And so I am excited about this new thing.
They brought it up the pipeline.
That's what you up the pipeline,
and it's trying to solve perhaps the problem that you had with it by doing that. I think I just want to say I don't envy the marketers who have to describe something like this, right? Because what they're really saying is we changed our photographic pipeline and the way we process multiple images in order to do, and like they have to invent things like Deep Fusion and the Photonic engine. They've got to explain in a sort of vague but sort of understandable way to regular people what exactly it does. And when, the alternative would be it's better, okay? Like it's better. Just that's it. It's better. And instead they try like Photonic engine, and we branded it and we move it up the pipeline, and it improves the low light, and which is great.
I like that they brand a thing. Now there's a new brand which includes the old branded terms.
Sure.
And then in like 4 more years, the Photonic engine is going to become a part of Ultra Tele Pro.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly right. And don't forget, we also got a new mode, Action Mode.
Action Mode.
Yeah, which is
what do you think's happening with this?
It's stable. It's more aggressive anti-stable or stabilization, anti-shake stuff. But it seems to be something that they put in a mode or a toggle to turn it on and off, so that
I could imagine it maybe zooms in the image a bit.
Yeah,
so you get some play.
Yeah, that's something like that is probably what's going on.
And they're saying so you don't need to gimbal anymore. Is their whole thing?
Yeah,
right?
but you wouldn't want to use this all the time. This is something you turn on because you're going to be doing this. So there are obviously trade-offs involved. Like you said, maybe they're zooming in or something like that. But that
I will say with the Photonic engine thing, it was something that they kept mentioning, which is interesting. It applies to all of the cameras. all of the cameras
Yes.
get this benefit,
Yeah, because it's
which
the
is
pipeline.
cool.
It's happening within the image pipeline.
Put
that
it
they
in the
built.
pipeline.
It's further up.
All US models eSIM now.
Of this, eSIM.
eSIM.
This was the introduced in the We Love eSIMs segment.
Interesting.
And I'm sure it's good for Apple because they get rid of the SIM tray and they don't have to engineer that. And they don't have to cut it out of the side of the frame, and they don't have to leave space on the inside and have a SIM reader or any of that stuff. It makes me uneasy just because I still use a SIM card because I keep transferring it to different phones that I'm reviewing. So that's interesting. But I think
So I looked into this
Yeah.
a little bit. Apple has a support document. As part of the quick setup thing, you're able to transfer the SIM card that's in a phone to an eSIM on a new phone.
Right.
Which is what's
The only
interesting.
things that give me hesitation are things that are more about me than they are about the regular person, right? Because for me, it's like, well, if I want to try 4 different phones, now I have to transfer my eSIM to that phone and then transfer it to this one. And how many transfers? And does my carrier get upset that I'm transferring my eSIM around, or do they not care? Maybe they don't care, but I'm always worried that they're going to say, oh, this guy's changed his eSIM 10 times, so we're going to flag his account or something like that. So,
Yeah.
but I think I'm just going to have to give up and embrace
I agree.
eSIM now.
Yeah.
SIM cards are
I
dumb,
understand where you're
right?
coming
SIM
from.
cards are stupid. We shouldn't have them anymore. It's
No,
like
no way.
Like why should we ever? Yeah, we shouldn't have them anymore.
And I have a similar thing to you. I'm like intrigued because these iPhones come out when I'm in Memphis for the podcast-a-thon. I'm going to try and get an American phone. I will have to see if I can transfer my British eSIM to an American phone. Who knows,
Who knows?
right? We'll find out. I'll let you know how it goes,
Amazing.
Jason. We can talk about it.
So-
But I want to get one.
Far out, Mike. Far out.
Far out,
Far
baby.
out. The
Far
answer
out.
is after a year. Literally, this was the rumor for last year's iPhone event. After a year of rumors, the satellite emergency feature, emergency SOS by satellite, is true. It's true. It's all true.
Full true, baby.
And and it's great. I know we've talked about it before, but the idea is when you're out of service and something bad happens, that's really bad. And so they've made this thing, and I like how they talked about, look, it's complicated because we don't have the big antenna, so we have this user interface where you have to point it at the satellite, and it's, on the inside, it's like the range, it's doing the, what's the strength of signal from the satellite, and I used to have satellite TV, and I remember being up on my roof trying to point the dish in exactly the right place to hit the satellite. It's kind of like that, keep moving, keep pointing at satellite once you lock it in, and you hold it there, and it can take less than 15 seconds in clear sky, but in light foliage, it might take a few minutes. It's a very low speed transfer, but it means that you can send an emergency message, or using Find My, share your current location via satellite. And I think this is great because, again, it's going to save lives. We know that already. They're going next year we'll have the emergency SOS via satellite Save My Life video montage.
You're going to get a combo. Someone's like fallen down and they're on a mountain and they couldn't call base camp because they've fallen over.
Right. And or crash detection. They're going to be outside of cell
They crashed
service,
on a mountain.
and they crash into a tree, and and it calls, and it uses the satellite to do it. I also thought it was really interesting that they talk about having to compress the text because they're really, really limited with what they're able to send across the satellite from an iPhone, right? All the way out into space. That's hard. And that on top of that, they built basically a wizard that walks you through identifying your current emergency situation. And that's super smart because that allows them to boil it down to the exact details in a way that is a very, very short amount of data that's being sent over the satellite, and then on the other end is being translated back into the report of where they are and what the situation is. And then they said that they've got it where those get sent as text messages to places that accept text messages, and places that have a live operator, they have an operator who will relay the message via voice from your message to the emergency. Like, it's really well thought out. It's so smart. It will save people's lives. And this leads me to my question, which is how this is a service. I was listening to Accidental Tech podcast from last week while I was driving down here, and they were talking about this, and it struck me, this rumor, and I thought, this is a service, and you can't you can't really say, if you don't want to die out in the middle of nowhere, pay us a fee, right? Like that's a hard sell, right? Like, hey, this new iPhone has this life-saving feature. Here's what it costs for us to save your life. And yet it's a service. You can't not, I think, charge for it ultimately, because this is a, or they're using a satellite provider. They're doing all the satellite data transfer. It can't be cheap. So what they did, and I was really impressed with this, is they did a free for 2 years with purchase. So you get this for your iPhone for 2 years with purchase. Presumably at that point, you're going to have to pay something to keep it going. Yep. But if you're a new iPhone buyer,
iCloud Plus or something like that.
Right, but it's not going to be an upsell where it's like, congratulations on spending $1,000 on your phone. Would you like to not die out in the wilderness? That'll be an extra whatever. Like it's covered for 2 years. I think it's an interesting solution to that problem of that this is totally a service, and they could have said, pay us for this service up front. If you want satellite emergency SOS, you got to pay us. And that's not what they did. And I think that,
and it really is something that not everybody's going to need, right? Like lots of people, sure, but lots of people, not so much. I feel like, depending on where you live in the world and what you might get up to, I don't know. But nevertheless, it's quite a morbid thing to think about. But it is really interesting to build features into your products that are designed to help you not die as a selling point.
And that's what I mean when I say the challenge of how do you use something that is going to save you from dying, but has a real cost, right? Apple has had to make a deal with this satellite company and build this whole system, and it's not just the cost of building the software and stuff. It's the ongoing cost of connecting to their satellite network, and that's a real cost because satellites aren't free. You gotta shoot them up there, and then they're up in space, and if they come down, you gotta have a replacement that you can switch to, and it's expensive. But yeah, it's really unpleasant to have to juxtapose the idea that there's life-saving technology and pay up deadbeats, right? Like you don't want to do that. So what do you do? And so making it the free for 2 years I think it's a pretty interesting and good compromise. I mean the argument is maybe not everybody needs this thing, but I think that's not, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's not true. I will tell you that we had to drive up to Oregon for Julian's college orientation, and then we were just in the Eastern Sierras over Labor Day weekend, and you're streaming music and then it stops and you realize that you are out of service. Like you're in the mountains, you're around Mount Shasta, or you're going through you're going through the mountains in Oregon, or you're going through Yosemite, and sometimes you've got service. I mean, I'd be surprised because then a notification would pop up and I'd be like, "Oh, this we're back in service for a moment," and then it would go away again.
Sure.
Like if you live your life at any point in a place like that, and you hear these stories about people who are like they're going through the mountains on the way to see grandma, and their car breaks down and they don't have service. Like, what do you do in a situation like that? And the answer is you tell your kid to stay in the car and the snow's coming down and you try to get to the road, and if somebody's coming, you flag them down, or is nobody coming and because they've closed the road, but you were the last car through? I mean, it's terrifying. So and our smartphones are so important, and they're such an important part of our lives. So to have this be built into every iPhone and have it be free for 2 years after you buy that iPhone, I'm really glad that they went to the trouble of building this feature in, because there's a difference between buying a fancy survival radio that you carry with you in the backcountry and just getting stuck somewhere with your iPhone.
Mm-hmm. So we mentioned it already that these devices are sticking in price, $7.99 and $8.99. Both available to order this Friday. The iPhone 14 is shipping September 16th. The iPhone 14 Plus is the sacrificial iPhone. It's not shipping until October 7th. This is the only phone that has been dated this way. I expect it's like we have... here's my thinking on this, right?
Okay.
Who knows? But we have a limited amount of parts that we can use amongst the phones in general. Let's put this on the phone that does not already have a direct model, right? Because they don't, they don't want to go for a period of time where they're not selling a certain phone, or they do it today and it's like weeks and weeks and weeks away, and then they're like, well, does that mean nobody's going to buy an iPhone, regular iPhone, for a long period of time? This phone is not replacing something technically. There isn't an iPhone 13 Plus.
Yeah.
So they've just decided this is the one that will go into October. Because what could be part of this phone specifically that is a problem part is how I look at it. I don't know.
I think it's priorities. You're right.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Capital One. Have you ever hit a technical snafu while shopping online? Has filling out payment fields given you a headache? Has a mobile banking app ever been down when you wanted to use it? Capital One believes everyone deserves better banking. This means easier access to money and more security, and that's why Capital One is investing in machine learning. Machine learning allows Capital One to do things like fight fraud of random forests with models that quickly detect suspicious activity and make it faster to alert federal investigators. And they identify how mobile app outages happen with causal models. Keeping their mobile app up and running doesn't happen by accident. Anomaly detection and incident response help determine why app outages happen, so engineers can quickly remedy them. Capital One speed up online shopping with machine learning at the edge. They make shopping with virtual card numbers smoother and more secure. This technology is based on logistic regression models and running inference in the browser. It identifies payment fields, which helps making using virtual card numbers easier and faster. The potential of machine learning is so big. See how Capital One is using machine learning to create the future of banking. Search machine learning at Capital One. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Our thanks to Capital One for the support of this show. iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max.
Oh, yeah. It's time to go to a special island. I call it the Dynamic Island.
This is exciting. I am incredibly hyped for this phone.
You know what's not exciting about this phone, Mike?
What?
The color. The color.
Oh, yeah. I don't like the purple, Jason.
I've seen the purple.
Tell me about it.
It is. Remember when I said Apple would find a way to make purple not exciting?
No.
It's you know how the Midnight laptop, it's like, oh, it's black, and then you look in exactly the right light and you're like, oh, I see, it's blue.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like that. It's like, hey, it's a gray phone, and then you look in the right and you're like, oh, I guess it's purple. Okay.
So they really should have called this Twilight then, as a listener.
They should have, right?
Yeah.
Except they didn't do Midnight and Starlight because those aren't professional colors. Instead, we get silver gold, deep purple, and another space black.
What does that mean?
Black. It's darker than space gray.
But if space gray was already not a defined color.
Yes. Well, this is space
Why
black.
do we need space black? Why can't it just be space gray?
I don't know.
How black is space black? Because
Anyway,
it looks kind of gray to me.
Apple has decided that the iPhone Pro should not come in fun colors, even as an option. It should just have sort of like really super standard colors. Okay, but deep purple, like midnight forest and darkened seascape, and again, 2 a.m. lemon. These are all just terrible colors. So okay.
I mean, look. Ultimately, I'm happy I don't have to make a hard decision to move away from my beloved gold.
Yeah.
And gold looks as amazing as ever, so I'm going gold.
Deep purple. I mean,
Let's
I like
talk about the
purple.
Dynamic
I like
Island,
that it's
Jason.
purple. Let's go to the Dynamic Island.
This thing looks amazing.
Okay.
Have you gotten to see it in use?
In use, I used it.
Tell me about it.
So here's the thing. We base so many of our stories and speculations on rumors from the supply chain, and the rumor from the supply chain was about the cutouts. So everything was about the cutouts. It was about the little lozenge and the little dot, and it was cutouts. Apple's going to have cutouts in their display, like a hole punch. It's going to be like an Android. They're going to have little hole punch things, whatever. And then last week, it was sort of like, oh, but maybe they'll be connected. And then over the weekend, it was like, oh, and maybe the little recording indicator light will be in there instead of somewhere else. And, and if you're somebody at Apple, if you're a fly on the wall at Apple, you're like, oh, they're getting closer. They're getting closer. Are they going to get it? Are they going to figure it out? And the answer is no, they didn't get it. It was an actual surprise, because what Apple did with the Dynamic Island, I think it's so funny and clever, is they took the existence of those cutouts and the idea that they would mask it with a little element, and they designed a whole bunch of status indicators around that element, that element grows and stretches, and the items that appear in the indicators are artfully placed not on the cutouts. And it's like you can, in bright sunlight, you can see the cutouts, right? You can see them. But most of the time, you forget that the cutouts are even there, and instead the little dynamic island is just your little buddy who gives you information about stuff, and it's not marring your display. It's an always on information bar. It's so smart and clever, and little whimsical animations everywhere to make it wider or taller as needed. So yeah, you're in music and you're playing music, and then you flip up to go to the home screen, and as you flip up to the home screen, a music widget, essentially, for lack of a better name, flips up into the dynamic island, and it sits there with a little teeny tiny thumbnail of the album art and a dynamic waveform,
little visualizer
that is color matched to the album art, by the way, and it's not fake, it's real. And you know, Mike, the answer here is this is why live activities weren't coming in iOS 16.0, and they said they were coming later this fall, is because I think these are basically live activities. I think that they go.
They are. It's been confirmed.
Yeah, they go together. I was hedging, but like it was very clear in the moment. It's like, oh, this is the other part of what the live activities API is this display. And so yeah, it's like a huge change in the iPhone interface to have a live status area that's available no matter what you're doing, that says what else your iPhone is doing, and integrated in a way that is funny and playful and natural. So you know, the proof is going to be in how it is to use, but in a short amount of time with it, like, I'm inclined to think that this is going to be a winner, that they took the bare problem of those two cutouts, and instead of doing nothing or doing the minimum, which is masking them out and maybe putting a dot back there, they said, why don't we, in a very quintessentially Apple way, why don't we lean into it and make this a fundamental iPhone interface element that is part of our identity going forward?
Really excited about it. And there is a confirmation from friend of the show, Serenity Caldwell. It is part of Live Activities and Activity Kit. It's not available in the release candidate right now, but will be coming to iOS 16 and Xcode later this year. So when the iPhones ship, it will only be Apple's. It will only be Apple's apps and services in the dynamic island, and then later on this year, you'll be able to see third-party apps when the Live Activities thing ships. It's all kind of tied into that. The always-on display got very little time and information.
Yeah, it is. I got to play with that too. It looks good.
Okay.
I think it's funny that, again, so remember when I said earlier in this episode that I think people underestimate Apple? Well, here are a couple other examples, which is the dynamic island. Everybody underestimated Apple and figured they'd just, patch it up with some pixels and call it a day. And they did not do that. They leaned into it. Always on display, I think, is in that category too, because I think everybody, just like we did where we said, that it's going to be an Apple Watch Pro and they're not going to lean into the sports features. I think we said, let's curb our enthusiasm. Let's not get our hopes up. It's probably going to drop out the images and it's going to be really kind of a very boring thing because they want to save power. And it's like, no, if you've got a colorful background picture, when it's in always on mode, it's still visible. It's dimmer. And they are doing some, algorithms to reduce what is displayed so that it draws less power on the OLED display. But it's not like everything fades to black and with some very light gray items. It's the widgets are monochrome, but your background is not monochrome. It's still there. And like the Apple Watch, it will drop out. I set a timer and then put it into always on mode, and it did the Apple Watch thing where it doesn't show you the rest of the seconds. It only shows you the minute. It's like, come on, you're refreshing once a second. Refresh the second hand, please. But yeah, it's way more vibrant for a dimmed display, but it's way more vibrant and personalized. They're not throwing that stuff away. Like, now that you've personalized your lock screen, good news, we're making it all disappear when it's always on. And then you tap and it all kind of lights up.
This is a feature I feel like I really need to use myself as well to like fully understand it, because it's not, it is very different to what I expected. Like I can't work out how bright does it feel like, and again, like we're saying, like what do you do with it at night? Like I'm intrigued about that.
And it depends on, I think it probably depends on your light environment, right? Like I would imagine that it's actually brighter when you're outside and dimmer when you're inside, but it does, and it's got a little, it's got a little animation, like literally you tap it and it fades up, right? It doesn't just blink or anything. It fades up into the full presentation mode. Again, a little bit like the Apple Watch. Clearly, this was all a lesson learned on the Apple Watch applied to the iPhone. But it looks good.
It has an A16 chip.
Yes, new chip. No chip lab, but Greg Joswiak gave us the plug. And I'm just going to point out, this is the next generation Apple chip, which means it might be the next generation on which the M3 is based for the Mac. Maybe not. There are some rumors that they might skip a generation at some point. It's their first 4 nanometer chip.
That's the key part, though, right?
Yeah.
Like if it does become, or even if this doesn't, but now we can see okay.
The M3 will undoubtedly
the M3
be
and will be 4 nanometer at least, right?
Yeah.
Or most or whatever way you do
Yes.
it. And then I guess I think really for me, the only thing that I noted, which was interesting, is there's a new display engine on the chip, which is powering the always-on dynamic islands anti-aliasing. So there's something going on there.
Right. They didn't make a lot of speed claims here. I do think that they focused on. They did talk about the high power cores are more powerful, and they use less power, and then the efficiency cores. And the truth is, those 4 efficiency cores, the iPhone is not using the high performance cores often, right? Because most
it is not interesting or enlightening, I think, at this point, to hear about the power of the chip inside of the iPhone.
Yeah, honestly, I think
raw
you're right.
power. I don't care about.
That's why
anymore.
they talked about using their cores and their CPU cores and their GPU cores and the neural engine and the ISP to do camera stuff, right? Because that is, in fact, I would be surprised if the thumbnail sketch of what this phone model year was going to be way back when was, this is the one with a 48 megapixel sensor on it, and therefore the chip development for this chip model needs to kill it on the image processing, because
it's got to do whatever it's got to do to deal with so much more information coming down the pipeline. I've read the pipeline.
Yeah.
But,
you get higher
me,
up, then you see what's coming down sooner.
And you need more of it. I want to know like raw power and speeds and cores for the Mac, right?
Right.
But for the iPhone and for the iPad, it's not really interesting anymore.
Or what you can do with it, because they're not constrained in any other way.
Especially now, because, it used to be like fun of like, look how much faster this is than my Mac. Well, that doesn't count anymore because we have those chips now. So like it's not, anyway. The camera, though, Jason Snell.
Yes.
My God, I'm so freaking excited. They gave me literally everything I wanted from the camera segment.
I love
of the keynote today.
So the things that we thought they might do, right? Because the simple version was, well, that 48 megapixel, they're going to do pixel binning, which they did. They call it the quad pixel sensor. That's the whole idea. You use 4 pixels, so you've got lots of light to make a really, really, really good looking 12 megapixel image. Great.
Yep.
But what else can you do? And this is where it's like, well, what do they choose to do? The answer is they chose to, among other things, create a virtual additional iPhone camera, which is the cropped middle 12 megapixels of the new sensor, at which you can take a full resolution photo. There's no optical zoom or anything. It's just a cropped in. It's not using the quad pixel at that point. It's using the actual pixels, but you can do that. And it's like you've zoomed into 2X for full resolution photos and 4K video.
I love this. Like, I love that the 3X exists, but I miss the 2X. And they even called it out in a way I was so happy about, where they're like, because also 3X is not so good for portrait, which it's not. Like, I feel like portrait photos now, I'm either too far away or too close.
Yes.
And 2X was so much better for that. So I'm really happy about this. I hoped they would do something like this. People thought, and I had thought, I wondered, like, will they use this sensor to do 10X zoom, like some of that, like Samsung does? But they hadn't done that. What I'm happy is they've done what I actually realistically wanted, which was more settings that are of high quality rather than
Right.
pushing past quality. And I think one of the reasons they haven't done this is there is a future iPhone expected to get a periscope camera, and so you may as well wait for that one to do that kind of further out feature.
I just want to be clear. Again, it's not a digital zoom. What they're doing is using the 12 megapixels instead of taking 48 and binning it to 12, and it's taking the 12 like it was the old iPhone, but because it's got the lens that's displaying on the whole sensor and they're taking the center of it, it's effectively a zoom, but it's zooming by discarding the quad pixel algorithm and instead using the more classic one dot per. So the image quality is not going to be as good as at the normal camera mode, but it's not a digital zoom because it's not inventing pixels.
Yep.
The pixels are there.
But they can still throw it through our wonderful friend Photonic Engine and get some better results out of it, maybe.
There's people in the chat room saying it's a digital zoom. I mean, define it how you want. To me, digital zoom means you're creating information where there isn't any, where you're taking something that you're blowing up pixels and making virtual pixels and making the image look bigger than it actually is. And they're not blowing up pixels here. They're just cropping the pixels. So I that feels different to me.
Yep. But everything across the board is getting better with hardware and with software. The ultra wide has a larger sensor, 3 times better improvement in low light. By the way, the main camera has a 2x improvement over the 13 Pro in low light for this stuff. Higher quality macro mode photos. They have a new adaptive flash, which I thought was really smart, that dependent on the focal length of the image, they adapt how much light they use, which is genius. And then for cinematic mode, they go up to 4K now in video, and you can do it at 24 frames per second. And ProRAW, you can use the full 48 megapixels resolution.
Yeah, right. That's it. Like what? So what if you say, well, it's great that you're doing this quad pixel thing, but I want all those pixels. I'm a pro photographer and I want 48 megapixels. And the answer is great. Then you use ProRAW, you get all 48 megapixels of it. Do what you want with it. And that's great. That's fantastic. Yeah, and cinematic mode 4K at 24 and 30 is great for people who, I mean, again, who is that? It's for the filmmakers who use the cinematic mode. I'm not sure anybody is, but if you're an aspiring filmmaker and you want to shoot 24 4K in cinematic
I was
mode,
listening
now.
To the Six Colors Secret Subscriber podcast, and our friend David Sparks said he wanted to use cinematic mode, but it was just at 1080 and that wasn't working for what he wanted with the rest of his workflow.
There you go. It's for Sparky then.
It's a higher quality image. There was no 8K video.
No.
Now, I'm assuming that this sensor could do it. I am expecting they are not doing it yet for 2 reasons. 1, not a lot of use, I think, for 8K as it stands right now. And 2, the file size is massive.
Yes, and you have to get it over that little lightning port.
Yeah, which is not great. So I just think right now there isn't a need for 8K. Let me tell you, Jason, I'm so excited for this phone. This is a big upgrade, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the real photo samples, but
just my own images, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
if you're the kind of person who buys an iPhone for the camera, I feel like there's no question about this. Like, we'll see what the reviews are and all of that, but like, this is a camera upgrade. I do think that that we have the dynamic island as it's
a design upgrade because of the screen, you know?
That is
the always on display too.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, there's a bunch of this for the boring third. Well, this is what Apple does though, right? It's like it's the third version of this body. So what do you do to make it interesting? The answer is you do a lot of really interesting stuff that isn't changing the body in year 3 because the body's been out there for a while and it's not that exciting, but you can do some other exciting stuff. And so here it is. They've got the island, they've got the always on, and they've got this new camera system. And then that's again, it's that for if you're just going on looks, it looks like it's more or less the same phone. But if you're looking at the specs and you're looking at what it does, it's actually a pretty dramatic upgrade.
Yeah, I am genuinely really pumped. They've given me the things that I wanted the most, right? That I've really been looking forward to. And one of them was just like, hey, the screen's going to look different, but then they've taken it that step further with this like delightful UI element in the Dynamic Island, which, by the way, that is a really bizarre name.
Dynamic Island.
Don't get me wrong,
So
I love it.
it is-
like, I love it, but it's a wild name.
My immediate thought was Dynamic Island is what happens when you release a phone with a notch and everybody calls it the notch, and you're an Apple product marketer and you're like, I don't like that name. And somebody says, well, why didn't you give it a name? And you're like, oh, yeah. Well, if we ever do something like the notch again, we're going to brand it.
Yeah. You know what?
So here it is, the Dynamic
I'm
Island.
going to say you are spot on there, because they just wanted you to say the Face ID sensor or nothing, right?
Right.
You just don't call it anything. It just is.
Right. So
yeah.
we're going to have to retro name the notch now. I propose the Static Peninsula. But it could be. We'll work on it. We'll workshop.
We can workshop
what the notch
that,
is
but
called.
love it.
But it's offshore of the Dynamic Island.
So that's everything announced today.
Yeah. And this is again September 16th.
So we have, I'm sure we'll have more to break down next week.
I'm sure. So I mean,
as
I'm
more
still
information comes out.
You've had a little bit of time. I'm still sort of in the bubble here. In
yeah,
the
for
ring.
sure.
And Apple.
And yeah, you're within.
Can you believe Upgrade is
the
coming to
bubble.
people live from inside the circle at
No,
Apple Park?
I cannot believe
hard
that.
to
That was a
believe.
big surprise for all of us. But look at that. Look where we've come, kids.
We've come so far.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you would like to support us, there's a few ways you could do that. You can sign up for Upgrade Plus. Go to getupgradeplus.com. You can support our sponsors, Capital One, Bombus, SourceGraph, and Squarespace. I will ask all of you, please, to go to stjude.org/relay, donate what you can, sign up to fundraise, share it with your friends, stjude.org/relay. If you want to keep up with what Jason will, I'm sure, will be writing many words, lots of not ink spilled, but like characters spilled. I don't know. A pixel spilled over at sixcolors.com. He is at jsnell, JSNELL. I am at imyke, IMYKE. And we'll be back next week. Until then, say goodbye, Jason Snell.
Goodbye, Mike Hurley. All right, we've got about 10 minutes to do Upgrade Plus.
I was timing it out.
Okay, good. They've got a clock here. I'm looking at it.
Yep. I was timing it out. So, Jason, one thing we didn't really get to talk about,
Yes.
which I really want to know,
Okay.
what was it actually like to go back to a keynote again?
It was-
What did it feel like?
Okay, so I've got an exclusive report for Upgrade Plus listeners about things executives say when they're near me. Not since Scott Forstall expressed that he disliked the movie Prometheus at his last Apple event before being fired. Have I heard an Apple executive after an event having opinions while I am next to them? But
Okay.
I am here to exclusively report the secrets that Jeff Williams revealed to Deirdre, head of people in the store, walking down the hill from the Steve Jobs Theater after the event. And what he said was, I really missed this. So again, not I mean, he's well trained. He's not going to break anything with the press around, but I like that in a moment where he is just talking to one of his colleagues, he said, I really missed this, and that, the films are great, but it's a different thing. And I had that same thought, which was this was not different in any way up until the moment where the video rolled from an event 3 years ago. We came to Apple Park. We went up the hill to the Steve Jobs Theater. We waited around, and then they let us in, and we went down into the theater, and the theater is beautiful, and we all sat down, and Tim Cook came out and said, good morning, and then he said, we're going to show this film now. And that was the part that was different. But other than that, it was exactly the same. And I'm not sure, it's more fun, I suppose, if the people are on the stage than on a video that's playing on the stage. But the net result is the same, which is it's not like there's an interactive portion of the presentation otherwise, right? It's not like somebody jumps up on the stage and says, Tim.
Or they're like, Tim's like, Jason,
Yes.
what do you think about this?
Yeah, that's right. Let me know your thoughts about the...
How am I doing so far?
Yeah. We're not talking about system settings here. This is not a Mac event, okay, Jason? Sit back down. Sit back down.
Or they do that thing like, Jason, I know you're going to like this. Here you go. There's your system settings.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever.
So effectively, it's the same. It does feel a little silly on one level to be sitting in front of a video that you could be watching at home. But the difference is then we got up out of our seats and walked back there and all the new products were there and we got to look at them and pick them up and take pictures.
That is the reason, right? That's why they caught
do
you.
it. Absolutely. And that's why they want us to do it, because they want us to see
And so
this
as
stuff.
well, that there will be some people that leave Apple Park today with a bag, and that bag's got a bunch of stuff in it.
There
and
will
now,
be some people. It won't be me, but
know?
there will be some people. Maybe I could get another one of those falafels that they were serving over at the cafe before I go.
good food,
Always.
always.
I mean, afterward they had a little working area for the press that was over in the Apple Store, because the Apple Store at the Loop has at Apple Park has a cafe, and so they make that area for press working basically. So I wrote some stuff and uploaded some pictures and had a little falafel sandwich.
So they kind of close it down to the public.
Yeah. It's members of the
sense.
public should not be anywhere.
Was
near
it that way before?
Yeah, this is what they did before. Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, this is it really is. Like Tim Cook said when he was on stage before they rolled it, and like my good close personal friend Jeff Williams told me directly, by which I mean he was talking to someone else and I was walking 4 paces ahead of him. Kind of back to the way it was before, with the difference being that it was just a pre-taped film instead of the actual event, but otherwise just the same. Like super weirdly familiar. We've been through so much in the last 3 years to end up in the same place in the fall of 22 that we were in the fall of 19, and Steve Jobs Theater and the whole bit. Big difference is that thanks to our good friends at PR and our pal Zach, I get to sit in the ring for this one.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I get to look at you. I'm looking at you. That's the thing. I guess we didn't mention. Me and Jason are on a video call right now, and I look different to last time, because last time we did that,
You were dying.
We were on the video call. I was dying.
almost
a little
died.
bit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
Well, I mean, how would I know? My watch couldn't tell me.
You
that,
had you had a brush with the Rona, as they say.
Speaking of, what was the mask wearing?
So the rule for this one was test negative yesterday. Show a
you
negative
did test.
proof of test.
Oh, great. That's great.
After 6 a.m. yesterday, and then masks were optional. I wore one because I'm still a little uncomfortable in a very packed in. I'm not wearing one here, obviously. I didn't wear one over in the cafe, but in the theater with all those people in there, I can work with a mask on just as easily as not, and so I decided to do it. But most people didn't, and so it certainly felt like back to normal or close to it. Also, we're in a COVID downswing in the Bay Area right now compared to in May or June. So
that's cool.
I think that is a good thing too. But yeah, it was really good. They very familiar, and we went through a couple of years where there was nothing familiar happening.
Yeah, I can imagine it. Just these things that I get, right, like hearing what you're saying about Jeff Williams too. Like when you're in that environment, if you've been in that environment before, there is an element of it like, oh, this now feels like
it feels
used to.
It feels real, and like I think that's what, again, friend of the show Jeff Williams. Didn't even know I was there. I think that's what he was getting at, is the films are great. Like I actually think, and we've talked about this, I think Apple making those films is I think it's a more effective communication. I think it works better. I think it's faster paced. It allows them to be very precise. They get everything out there exactly the way they get to have fun. And we've seen stylistically, they have lots of fun with the subway thing, and then stepping into the Jackhammer Man, and then stepping into the cafe and all of that. Like there are visual flourishes. They really, I think it's a better presentation, and almost everybody only watches it remotely anyway. So why not do it that way? But by doing the event here and having the press and analysts and stuff come and filling up the theater, it gave you that, it feels real. And I think that if you're Jeff Williams or anybody else who works on this stuff at Apple, and you do your bit, and then like on the day you're in your pajamas in your living room and they play the video, or wherever you are, it's not real, right? It doesn't, you were. It's like being in a movie and not going to the premiere, or being in a movie and the
Yes.
movie is never released. Not that that would ever happen, unless it's Batgirl. So
I mean, but, I don't know if you're aware, Jason. Movie premieres, they're very contentious at the moment.
I do know that. I am aware of the beefs that are going on with the movie. premiere.
I don't usually get sucked into this kind of stuff because I kind of
It is fascinating, right?
But like, you can't avoid it, and I
No.
honestly don't understand what's happening.
It's got a
with this
Ted
movie.
Lasso connection too, but anyway, we're not going to talk about that.
Another time.
Another time, another place, not in Apple Park. But there's an unreality if you record your bit and you put it in, like, I'm going to do a thing for the podcast-a-thon, and we're going to record that in advance, and I'm going to edit it, and
Yep.
I'm going to ship it off to you. But like, my part is, I mean, you have me on to introduce it, which is nice and actually makes me part of the show. I assume that's going to happen this time. I don't know. Let me know.
I'll ask Stephen, but I'm assuming the answer to that question is yes. It always
But
is.
once I ship the video file to you, I did my bit, right? So you're part of this Apple marketing machinery, and they say, we want you, person, to, Cayenne, we want you to do the iPhone presentation bit, and or the poor woman who did the AirPods, who was in the most technically challenging, and every line of her dialogue seemed to be dubbed in because they had stuff behind her, and that was a really, so she does all that work, and like, okay, that's the creation part, but if you just release it out on the internet, I mean, it doesn't feel as real, as my point. To then comes event day, and
Yep.
people
Yep.
line up, and they park deep down inside the sub-basement levels of parking that are underneath that visitor center, because it goes way down. And then they file in, and the smiling people with the blue T-shirts say, "Please go to the left." And the grumpy people with the black security shirts say, "Don't go to the right." And then you go to the theater, and they offer you little snacks, and they take you down. And like, even though they just played the video, it's an event. It's a thing that is happening, and it's happening for the people at Apple. It's happening on campus, and there's something tangible about that having it be on a video stream just isn't. And that's so it was fun to be back and to experience that. And I get why people at Apple would feel that way too.
All right, upgradings. We've run out the clock on our time today.
We have.
Apple have been very kind with
Ding.
the time that they've spent us. We'll be back next time. Thank you for supporting the show. We really
Yes.
appreciate you.
Thanks,